20 million players used to be here, and now it's a ghost town. That's right, the Call of Duty killer X-Defiant, a game I enjoyed, is dead forever. The AAA gaming space in many ways feels like a mess. The fallout of the pandemic and layoffs are still being felt to this very day, and X-Defiant is the latest victim of all of this, as well as poor management by Ubisoft not supporting their studios. Yesterday, the X-Defiant servers were permanently turned off, and the official CEO actually came out and stated what went wrong with the title. Ironically, the exact same thing happened to Halo Infinite happened to X-Defiant, which I found very interesting, so I thought you all would too. When the game first came out, X-Defiant actually had more players than Call of Duty, being marketed as a game with the old school skill-based matchmaking system, something that I really loved. In saying that, it wasn't enough to keep players sticking around. It's yet another game that sticks the landing. They have the population, and X-Defiant had a lot of people playing it, but unfortunately because of troubles in terms of adding new content post-launch, the population of the game dwindles. And on December 4th, 2024, Ubisoft announced that X-Defiant was closing in June 2025. This decision was compounded by the fact that Ubisoft has no idea what they're doing in terms of managing the titles at their disposal, but the real issues with X-Defiant were under the surface. CEO and man in charge of X-Defiant, Mark Rubin, posted yesterday that due to little to no marketing, it was becoming increasingly hard to get new players to try out X-Defiant. This, I feel, could have been fixable if Ubisoft pulled their heads out of their asses to provide the appropriate resources for marketing. But what was never going to be resolved, and we've seen a similar problem with Halo Infinite, was the technical debt and engine issues that made adding new content and fixing pre-existing problems near impossible. I'll read what CEO Mark Rubin said and then give you my thoughts. For one, we had crippling technical debt using an engine that wasn't designed for what we were doing, and we didn't have the engineering resources to ever correct that. This is literally the exact same issue Halo Infinite had with its game engine, Slipspace. The Slipspace engine had so many problems that it literally stopped any sort of content pipeline, as the engine had to be managed and it was causing nightmares. Like, developers would try to do something and then go to lunch because it would take hours for one thing to get done. It was horrible. Mark went on to say, I do personally think that in-house engines are not the valuable investment they used to be, and they're often doomed to fail behind big engines like Unreal. Literally one-to-one, the reason why Halo has moved to the Unreal Engine. Although I am wary that as time goes on, less and less game engine variety will exist, and a majority of the games will be made on the Unreal Engine. You guys can decide if that's a good thing or not. Mark continued on and said, this technical debt included the dreaded netcode issues that we just could not solve given the architecture we were dealing with. And so, for many players with solid network connections in both speed and consistent reliability, the game played well, but if your connection had even the smallest amount of inconsistency, the engine just couldn't handle it, and you would have a bad experience. It is scarily accurate just how close this is to Halo. When Halo Infinite came out, I had some real life friends from high school try the game out. They had those networking problems, and they're like, Remy, what the hell is happening with this game? Like, seriously, 343 Industries, now Halo Studios, literally spent a year fixing the networking model because players would get desync with their characters, old Halo physics were gone, and people would be getting shot around walls. Networking is how the game feels, and ironically, I said when this game came out, X-Defiant has the exact same networking model as Halo. Funnily enough, this meant it had the positives, but it also had the negatives. This meant regardless of ping, your shots would land, even if the other player goes behind a wall. If you hit them in any way, it will count. The good news with that is shots will always land. The bad news with that, if someone has a bad connection, you get shot through walls very often. The difference between Halo and X-Defiant is one game had the resources to fix the problem. Ubisoft, on the other hand, pulled the plug. Microsoft gave 343 Industries the resources. Ubisoft was facing bankruptcy. It should put into perspective how things could have gone for Halo. I never thought Halo Infinite would get fixed to the point it has, and I'm glad the day-to-day developers put in the time to fix those damn problems the old leadership caused. Now, when I read this public statement, I was like, whoa, this is literally the Halo situation. Not only from technical debt and the game engine issues, but even the lack of content and the lack of features. The final thing Mark said, and this will really nail the point home for you all watching this video was that he said was having the right resources to make content for the game. What we saw at Season 3 wasn't even enough content in my mind for launch. There were some really cool features coming later in Season 4 or 5 that would have completed the game in a way that I felt should have been for launch. Halo Infinite took years to get to that launch state. X-Defiant was the same. He finally says, I can say everyone's heart was in the right place, but we just didn't have the gas to go the distance for a free-to-play game. The content they're talking about is literally an Assassin's Creed themed season, something that got shipped half finished into the game. Once the game's cancellation was announced, that would have been amazing. On a personal level, I'm disappointed X-Defiant failed. One, because I want Call of Duty to have more competition, so they're forced to actually fix their stupid anti-cheat in their Warzone Battle Royale. Competition also means that Call of Duty would have actually needed to improve the level of their content. More competition means better games for gamers. The more competitive the market is, of course it means the players have more choice, but developers cannot release half-baked will fix it later products, as another game developer will nail their release, and the half-baked game will rightfully crash and burn, as it should have released in that state. More than that though, I really enjoyed X-Defiant. Sniping was fun, FaZe Scope did a lot of videos on the game and they were great to watch, and I played the game on both Xbox Series X and PC, and for me, the game felt great on both. The lobbies were fair, you could play with friends, and it didn't punish you based on your performance from previous matches. That's such a rarity nowadays, and it's always shitty to see when you have passionate developers cut off at the legs by corporations. Mark Rubin, the CEO, felt unsupported in almost every regard, from marketing to the very game engine. It's like Ubisoft set him up to fail, which, if you read his press release, he literally says to his fellow developers, the cards were heavily stacked against you, but you managed to produce a really fun and terrific game. And they did. I really enjoyed my time playing it, and I always want games to succeed. In this case, it didn't. Ironically, if you look at Ubisoft's stock price, those bad decisions are reflected in that. Repeated failure after failure, poor decision after poor decision. The Ubisoft executives for years have tried to tell the gaming audience how things should be. The only time we've seen any change in how they conduct business is when they were literally faced with bankruptcy. That is the first time they made the decision to postpone a game until it was truly ready, and that was the latest Assassin's Creed. The worst part about all of this is that when they actually do get something right, they don't provide the resources to the people in charge to continue seeing success. It is truly bewildering to behold. And with that, that's the sad end to X-Defiant, the Call of Duty killer that was taken out back and shot by the very executives who approved the game in the first place. Mark Rubin, the X-Defiant CEO, has retired as of this game being ended, so I hope Mark enjoys retirement. I enjoyed my time on the game, even if it didn't last forever. I played the game for a couple of months every night, and I enjoyed it. In saying that, it's honestly really scary the similarities between this game and Halo. It gives you an insight on how Halo Infinite could have gone if Microsoft pulled the plug. Two different games, two different paths, one game was fixed, one game was killed. In any case, I felt like it was important to make this video. I'll be back tomorrow because we have a lot to talk about Splitgate 2 related, and don't worry, I will not be holding anything back. But for now, thank you for watching, I hope you all enjoyed, and I'll see you guys later.